Lance Stroll's Formula One future is now arguably the most discussed subject in the paddock. With rumors of nepotism, patchy performance, and apparently indifferent attitude, numerous fans and insiders are calling into question his role in the sport. Ahead of the 2026 season, when it really matters, the driver market is hotting up, and Aston Martin's direction might see a seismic change. Will Lance stay in F1, or is it finally over for him? Let's get into the soap opera, the facts, and the possible replacements. The controversy over Lance Stroll's Formula One career is not new, but its intensity has never been higher. From fans to established pundits, the view is becoming more crystallized. Lance is not driving at the level he should as a driver in a championship contending team. Reality is hard to escape. Stroll is still in F1 only because his father, Lawrence Stroll, owns the Aston Martin team. Where nepotism does happen in so many aspects of sport and industry, it's especially jarring in a sport as cutthroat as Formula One. Seats are precious, and the presence of a driver who is seen as underwhelming raises grave concerns. At press conferences, Lance tends to sit removed, answering questions with little passion or flair. His recent encounter with the media at the Canadian Grand Prix, where he refused to be more specific about his wrist injury in respect of doctor-patient confidentiality, further fueled the controversy. Although the reason behind it could be valid, the manner in which he did it further strained his already tense relationship with the media. Germany's Sport Bild pointed out this problem by studying his media interactions. They explained how Stroll slouched on a couch beside Lewis Hamilton and Franco Colapinto in Canada, gum-chewing and answering with a lack of interest. His per-question response averaged more than 33 words. For a sport built on narrative, characters, and interaction, this is behavior that stands out in a negative manner. Comparisons to other drivers such as Max Verstappen come into play, but they are in vain. Although Verstappen has had his own moments of strained interactions with the media, his motivations are competitiveness and extreme pressure from being at the top. Lance's attitude is more a sign of indifference rather than being focused. Provided Lawrence Stroll remains backing his son, Aston Martin driver inventory is not going to shift. This is a paradox, a team with high aspirations hampered by a driver who might not be committed to it. The Silverstone team has taken major strides by hiring Adrian Newey and coming to terms on Honda power units for 2026. They're gradually becoming a serious challenger. They can only capitalize on that if they have both seats occupied by first-class drivers. Fernando Alonso is still very much competitive at 43 years of age, beating his teammate convincingly week in and week out. But he can't do it all by himself. Lance, sadly, has not been able to hold up his part of the team effort. Ex-F1 driver Timo Glock wasn't afraid to show his scorn. He said that by no means would he sign Lance for 2026. Glock added that Stroll has always lost qualifying battles and is not consistent over a full season. Even on weekends where he seems to be bridging the gap, the overall performance simply does not live up to the standard. Statistics indicate that in the first 10 races this season, Lance edged out Alonso in points. But that's not the full picture. His performance has fallen off, and emotional tantrums are now more common. At the Barcelona GP, Lance smashed equipment when he got knocked out in Q2, losing over half a second to Alonso. It was reminiscent of his 2023 Qatar GP breakdown, when he pushed aside his physio in anger. These responses, unfettered by team management, raise the issue of accountability. Everyone assumes Lance believes he is above it all, shielded by his father's ownership. That lack of pressure and accountability quite often fosters complacency. Following the Montreal GP, Lance went on record as saying he didn't expect to be quick in 2025. Meanwhile, Alonso was more optimistic, citing the team's upgrades as a silver lining. Lance's 2025 vision was also ominous. He conceded no difference in the car and questioned any improvement. "I feel pretty slow," he said. "I know we are slow, and I have a good feeling that's going to be the case again in Austria." This negativity doesn't instill confidence in fans, engineers, or stakeholders. Conversely, Alonso qualified for Q3 while Lance misfired in Q1. The upgrades favored Alonso much more, highlighting the increasing performance gap between the two drivers. Stroll's defeatist mindset can be infectious in a team striving for excellence. The underlying problem is that Aston Martin is attempting to be two things simultaneously: a family operation safeguarding its heritage and a top-level team that competes for championships. These two aspirations are starting to conflict with each other. With Honda's backing and Adrian Newey's input, the team needs to ultimately put outcomes ahead of emotion. If the team struggles despite its resources, people will wonder. And the first question will be, should Lance be in his seat? His failure to provide precise car feedback, his temperamental nature, and his refusal to work with race engineers all point to the fact that he might be a liability rather than an asset. Looking to the future, there are a number of possible replacements for Lance. One name that immediately comes to mind is George Russell. Should his Mercedes seat become in doubt, particularly if Max Verstappen and Toto Wolff come to an agreement, Russell could find himself on the lookout for a new team. Aston Martin would be a perfect fit for a driver of his level. Even when Russell becomes available, there is little chance Lance would be let go. A more likely situation is Alonso being retired and Russell taking the top role. This would not only emphasize Stroll's weakness but even more so. Honda could influence this decision significantly. The Japanese giant wants a say in the driver lineup, just as it did at Red Bull. They might advocate for Yuki Tsunoda, though his inclusion remains speculative. Nonetheless, Honda's involvement changes the dynamic. They are unlikely to tolerate underperformance for long. Aston Martin has most of the ingredients to copy Red Bull's recipe for success: excellent engineers, new engines, and high-tech infrastructure. But missing from the list is a second driver who can deliver a consistently good performance. If Lawrence Stroll wants to see his team on top, however, he might need to make a difficult decision regarding his son. And then, of course, there's the chance that Lance will retire willingly. Though his first season at Williams offered hope, there was that Baku podium. His progress has stalled. With each year, the pressure intensifies and the excuses thicken. The driver market in 2026 is set to rock the grid. Aston Martin will either take the bull by the horns or just keep on going as it is. If the team continues to prioritize keeping Lance at the expense of performance, it will squander the monstrous potential it has created. Whether Lance makes a dramatic improvement or finally departs, the attention is on Aston Martin. Will they lead with performance? Or will family obligations get in the way of their quest for glory? Lance Stroll's career in Formula One is one of the sport's most divisive issues. With Aston Martin setting its sights high and massive overhaul on the cards for 2026, the stakes are rising. Will Lawrence Stroll look to serve his son's career ahead of the ambitions of the team? Or will the winds of change finally sweep through Silverstone? Let us know your opinion in the comments below, and be sure to take a look at the video on your screen this instant for more F1 analysis.